Wellity, I love when something like this happens. A company that is already well established, known for their quality, branches out and makes something new that is integrated with their old. This is a brand new autofocus lens, the first ever autofocus lens from Kase, who you probably know from their fantastic filters. But here's the thing, they knocked this out of the park as their first venture. It is small, it is lightweight, it is optically fantastic, and because they are a filter company, they made it compatible with their magnetic filters. You don't have to attach anything. Just throw your filter right on there, or maybe a magnetic lens cap. We need to talk about this. Now this lens is the latest in the very competitive lens category of 85mm f1.4. As many of you know, Viltrox released an 85mm f1.4 not too long ago, and people are raving about this. So Kase is making this for Sony E-mount and Nikon Z-mount at the moment. As you can see, it is smaller and it's also lighter, because you can't feel through the screen, but it is lighter than the Viltrox lens. We will see how they compare, but I will consider this a showcase for the Kase, because this is a sponsored video. I will still do all of my regular tests. I'll compare it to the Viltrox 85 1.4 because I think that is the closest competitor. I was going to throw in the Sony 85 1.8, but really I would pick either of these two lenses over that Sony 85 any day of the week. So I will just put it head to head with what I think is its closest competitor, the Viltrox 85 1.4. So let's check out that weight right now on my scale. 585 grams I have for the Kase, and the Viltrox, no lens caps here, is 795 grams. So that is more than 200 grams, definitely noticeable. Now let's talk about the build quality of the Kase. It has a very smooth turning focus ring that has just enough damping, in my opinion. This feels very premium. This is a premium lens, and it has an aperture ring that can be clicked or declicked. It has a metal mount, but the lens itself is made mostly of plastic, and that really helps to keep the weight down. On the front, we have a 72mm filter thread, and you can apply regular filters to that can screw right in there, or like I said, you can get some of the Kase magnetic filters and then just plop them on right there. This UV filter they sent me with the actual box itself. I don't know if that will come in the standard package, but it is great to be able to protect your lens. Throw that on right there in case you drop your lens if you're a Butterfingers like myself. But I really love this magnetic cap too. It also comes with a little regular pinch cap, you know what I mean? But who's going to use that when you have a magnet? You also have an autofocus to manual focus switch and two focus hole buttons. Now this is the first time I have seen two focus hole buttons on an 85mm f1.4, and the minimum focus distance is actually 70 centimeters on this 85, which is again the first time I've seen that. For an 85mm f1.4 to have a minimum focus distance of 70 centimeters, that is the shortest focusing distance I have seen out of any 85. The Viltrox, on the other hand, has one focus hole button, and its minimum focus distance is 79 centimeters. So if you're interested in more of a macro photography lens, you're going to do better with the Kase. It also comes with a branded circular lens hood, and I think that Kase should have had a better lens hood than this. It's fine, you know, it's okay, it gets the job done, but the lens is quite premium overall, and I find the lens hood is a little bit of a letdown. If you compare it to the Viltrox, well, first of all, the Viltrox is a nice bit bigger, but it also has more flair to it, a better design, I think, and it's also a stiffer plastic. So I do think that in the next iteration of this lens or their autofocus lenses going forward, they should put a little more effort into the actual lens hood. Not a big deal overall. I can live with it. I would just prefer to see a nicer lens hood. You also have a generous weather sealing gasket on the back and a USB-C port for updating your lens. Now let's talk about what's most important, how the lens actually performs. I took this to New York City. B&H was having their big build conference, and they had some models there, a New York City backdrop, so I took this lens. It was one of the only lenses I took for the entire trip. I wanted to test it out, put it through its paces, and it did exceptionally well. I was really glad to have it when they had all those models. It looks great coming straight out of camera. You don't get any kind of color cast. It doesn't have a yellow tinge. It doesn't have a magenta tinge. It is quite neutral, just straight with the JPEGs and no editing. The contrast is excellent. The colors just pop. Vibrant images. Really impressed with the glass that they've put into this Kase lens. Like, let's look at sharpness. I just praised the Viltrox 85 f1.4 for its sharpness down at f1.4, and I should have praised it because it was excellent. But the Kase not only holds its own, it may be a tiny bit sharper at f1.4 if you're pixel peeping to about 200%. It's hard to pick a difference between the two in terms of sharpness, but if I had to, I would say the Kase is a little bit sharper. The autofocus is excellent, very responsive, no hesitation, no fluttering, very sure of itself. The lens does exhibit a fair amount of focus breathing, so if you plan to stack your photos for focus stacking in post, you do have to be aware of that, or if you're going to use the lens for video and you're doing long focus pulls, then that focus breathing could be a problem. And because it's a third-party lens, just like the Viltrox, you can't avoid the focus breathing with the Sony focus breathing compensation. That is for Sony first-party lenses only. And also, this will be capped at 15 frames per second if you're using something like the Sony A9 III, so only Sony lenses will be able to get that ridiculously high burst rate, whereas these guys, all the third-party lenses, capped at 15 frames per second max. When it comes to chromatic aberration, I have great news here. Kase does as well or better than the Viltrox, which is excellent at chromatic aberration suppression. So if you're looking at lateral chromatic aberration, you're really not going to see any on either lens. When it comes to longitudinal chromatic aberration, that is the aberration you see in the foreground and background, the areas that are out of focus. Both lenses do an excellent job, even all the way down at f1.4 is impressive. The bokeh looks lovely and soft. Of course, you're going to need lovely soft backgrounds when you're shooting down at f1.4. The bokeh balls, also very nice, clean balls on this lens because there's no chromatic aberration problems to worry about, so you get no weird color fringing, no haloing, nice and clean, no onion ringing. The Viltrox also does an excellent job with the bokeh and the bokeh balls. When it comes to flare ghosting and Sunstars, both lenses use really nice coatings. Impressed that Kase has used such great coatings on their first offering, and when you take a look at the Sunstars, they are pretty similar on both of these lenses, and the actual flare and ghosting control is a little bit better on the Kase than it is on the Viltrox. I have no complaints about the Viltrox, but you are going to hold a little more contrast with the Kase, and you're going to control those flares and glares just a little bit better. When it comes to price, the Kase is going to come in full price at $738 USD. They will be offering a coupon. I will link that down below. I don't know how long that is going to stay valid for. Now, that is a fair bit more expensive, $738, than the $598 from the Viltrox. So you have to decide, are the upgrades in this lens worth it to you over the Viltrox? In terms of build quality, I would give the edge to the Viltrox lens. It just feels so excellent. Everything is done so well. It has a nicer lens hood, great matte finish on it. Everything about this feels extremely premium. The Kase is no slouch in that category. I just like the Viltrox better in terms of its build. However, the Kase is smaller and lighter, and of course you can apply your magnetic cap or filters. You have the two focus hole buttons. It outshines the Viltrox in terms of sharpness by a little bit, chromatic aberration by a little bit, and flare and ghosting control by a little bit as well. So all of those upgrades mean that this is an excellent offering for $738. I am just so impressed with the 85mm f1.4s that are coming out on the market. I'm going to have to do a roundup of all of the third-party 85 1.4s because there's a few now, but overall this Kase is definitely an excellent lens. You can make a case for it. That's what Tom Buck would say. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know down below what you think of this lens, and we'll have a nice little discussion about it. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.